Hey everyone, welcome to Voluntary Virtues Roundtable. I'm your host, Mike Shanklin. As always, we're here every Tuesday night, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And as always, I have the wonderful panel backing me up. Cody, Robert, and Steven tonight. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Well.
Good, and I think it's fixed, Robert.
Yeah.
Maybe it was too quick. We were having some technical difficulties. Yeah. So good stuff. It's really good to see all you guys here and to go over the show tonight. It's going to be a couple great guests. We also have a lot of great topics. Current events mostly tonight, not really as much, we're not going to be talking deontology over here as much as maybe consequentialist arguments. But anyway, it's still going to be a very good night. As you guys know, we have a free bumper sticker contest, and we always do that every single week for the top-rated comments. So, out of all the people who are going to be commenting tonight, keep that in mind. Make a nice killer zinger towards a free society, maybe a statement that you think would better the world or whatever you want to think of that we would think is top-rated. And our subjective viewpoints will come into play here shortly. At the end of the night, I'll give a winner, hopefully before we get off air. Sometimes I forget to announce the winner. I have to do it afterwards because people come bugging me. Hey, who won that bumper sticker? Can I have that one? You didn't claim any. Actually, I did give it to somebody. I don't want that tonight. So you guys, I'll try and announce that before we get off the air tonight. So that is always done by nonaggression-apparel.com. So leave some great comments. Let's have some fun tonight, and hopefully you can get some free bumper stickers. Don't forget to subscribe to the brand new Voluntary Virtues Network. As you guys know, quickly growing. We just hit on this network. As you guys know, we have hundreds of thousands of people on the other network. But as far as the brand new Voluntary Virtues Network, which now has over 350 members inside of the group, but we also hit our 1900th fan or subscriber over on the Facebook page. So quick success. It's almost like we hit 25, 50 new people a day. So quickly growing, and we'll see if this hits critical mass or not, just like the original Facebook page. Great stuff, and thanks to everybody out there for the support. Always a pleasure to have the panelists on that we have. Obviously, after this show at 10 p.m., we have the After Hours with the Krug, Robert Kruger, who is also the co-host tonight. So make sure you guys stick around. It's going to be like Monday morning quarterbacking, but right at late Sunday evening, if you want to put it that way. We don't wait till the morning. Anyway, we're not too drunk here, so I guess we don't have to sober up like many football fans. All right, enough knocks on jokes out there. Today we have a really interesting guest. Two of them really interesting. One of them is an extreme voluntarist. He's coming up at 9:20 to 9:55. His name's Michael Freeman. First, though, we have Spencer C. Young. He spent time over at Morgan Stanley. He actually came from Cornell University, studied a lot of finance, was a banker at Wall Street, and has since kind of been like a whistleblower, if you want to put it that way. He's coming on here within the next couple minutes. I'm about to bring him on. But before I do that, let me go over some of the topics that we're going to be covering after he gets off at 8:40 p.m. Excuse me. So we're going to be talking about the World Cup. We're going to be talking about Lyft and Uber, two taxi companies that have been shut down in Pennsylvania recently from regulations, licenses, etc. So we'll get more into that. Ross Ulbricht, the alleged, I'm going to make sure I say the word alleged Dread Pirate Roberts, I think that's what it was, from Silk Road. Anyway, there's an Indiegogo campaign for his legal defense. Obviously, we can talk about that for hours. Hopefully we can squeeze in about 5 or 10 minutes of commentary on that. Also want to talk about the NSA targeting the privacy-conscious people out there. Even the Linux Journal, a pretty open-source, mainstream, it's Linux, is like a main Linux website. It's being called an extremist group by the U.S. government and NSA. We'll get into that too. I also wanted to talk, maybe this is really what I was thinking about, the subjectivist viewpoints, and really one of the main headlines for tonight on the topics was world hunger being reduced overall throughout the world, and how technology and a free market spontaneous approach is actually what's bringing out the good, while as this false illusion of tax and spend is actually really ruining us. We'll get more into that too. I'm sure that's going to bring out lots of discussion. We also want to talk about the ex-New Mexico governor, who Gary Johnson's actually now invested heavily into marijuana, the legal trade. Thank you, Colorado, and Washington, right? But I don't want to make it sound like all collectivist, but I do want to talk and hammer away on some of the more agorist avenues, and I like people putting their money where their mouth is. There's a lot of talk out there, not always a lot of action. So, not that we can always do every single thing that we talk about, right? But it's good to see people putting action into play. Also, I wanted to maybe hopefully go over Lou Rockwell's new article. He just put out, what was it, 10 days ago, 11 days ago now, on circumcision. So lots of great topics, and we have to get to this wonderful guest here. He's actually, let me just go ahead and give him the intro. Our guest today is Spencer Young, author of Cannibals in White Shoes, which is a true story of how a Wall Street firm, what they say, eats its own and others. This is a nonfiction expose of yet untold banking abuse, judicial corruption, and police brutality, which is scheduled for a phased publication this fall, offering a variety of formats, including a multimedia version. As this literary work features many unique elements, it represents an entirely new literary genre. Coined a story saga questmore, I hope I said that right.
That's correct.
All right, good. It is not merely a story of outlandish criminal wrongdoings by wayward bankers. It is not just a saga of oppression by an undeserving select few on the oppressed many. And it is not merely a quest for long elusive justice. It is more than that. For example, it'll serve to launch a series of targeted activism initiatives where half of all book proceeds will help similarly victimized, or others who are similarly victimized, but who hereafter have been unable to do anything about it. Mr. Young is a former Wall Street executive with over 2 decades of investment banking and international corporate finance experience at some of the most well-known market-leading institutions. His banking career began at Citicorp Real Estate, then the #1 global commercial real estate lender, where he was controller and treasurer. He segued to the deal-making side when he joined J.P. Morgan prior to its merger with Chase, to found its commercial mortgage-backed securities, or CMBS, business, serving as its chief operating officer. He later joined Morgan Stanley to run its CMBS conduit business. Within 2 years of his arrival, Morgan Stanley became the #1 global underwriter of CMBS, a distinction that was consistently maintained during his tenure. He also created what became the most successful proprietary brand of commercial mortgage-backed security, the IQ, institutional quality brand of CMBS. All told, Mr. Young completed over $30 billion in transactions and is responsible for founding businesses and developing franchises that are today worth billions of dollars. Some of our listeners may contend, perhaps with heightened emotion, that Wall Street and big corporations, where Mr. Young spent his entire professional career, are responsible for destroying our economy, wiping out the middle class, and hijacking many branches of government. Others may take the step further and suggest that Wall Street has basically created a corporatocracy. I would even say, and he says like in a rigged system, I would even go as far as to say, well, this is going to go into a whole philosophical discussion here tonight. So I'm going to save some more of my opinions for after we bring him on. But there is a lot of discussion I think we can have from this. So I figured we should have Spencer on the show tonight to discuss, what is going on in his life, what some of the troubles he's ran into. Obviously, he's had quite an experience. So with no further ado, Spencer, welcome to Voluntary Virtues. How are you doing?
Thank you, Mike, and I really appreciate you having me on your show.
Hey, good stuff.
Just one quick point. If anybody is wanting to ask a question of our guest, definitely comment on the YouTube channel. We do take questions and bring them on the air so that our guests can answer them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good point, Robert. So with that being said, we have to start off with what is Morgan Stanley Gate, and how did you play into this? Obviously, you're going to have to give us a little backstory here.
Sure, and I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. But during my tenure at Morgan Stanley, I was subjected to a rather insidious employment fraud, and the folks who were involved in it were actually later responsible for that whole, call it the residential mortgage meltdown in 2008, which is purportedly created the Great Recession of 2008 and nearly destroyed the global economy. And so these are pretty fairly evil people, but it's really what it is. It's a story of a relatively minor infraction, and then where the efforts to try and cover it up grew and grew very similar to the Watergate scandal. For as you remember, it was a burglary, and it was all the efforts to try and cover it up that made it become a scandal. So as a result, the efforts of Morgan Stanley to cover up all of their wrongdoing is why we call this Morgan Stanley Gate.
All right, so let's go over some of the actions that you see are criminal, and what kind of retribution you're asking for.
Well, as I mentioned, it began with an employment fraud, but those sort of things go on all the time on Wall Street. You know, when there's a lot of money involved, people will do some not the most above board type of.
Hey, I've been to Vegas. You know, I've been to a few of the dirty strip clubs myself.
Yeah,
Bachelor
yeah,
parties.
so
You know, I've seen some people do some stuff for money that's, you know, I know what you're getting at, and I'm sure it's even worse when you're talking about millions of dollars.
Yeah, well, in this case, what began to be hundreds of millions of dollars involved, really at risk, it became franchise value in the billions, and that's really why this thing grew. And it was just sort of a perfect storm of circumstances. And so what's interesting is that I'm giving what's known as it's a dual perspective. In other words, I saw some things go on when I was an insider at Morgan Stanley, and I saw it happen to one of my staff people. And then, because again, the circumstance of creating a product that was so successful and worth so much money, that with efforts to try and move me out and then protect that valuable security. So it's really the efforts after that became just the most outlandish, I guess, array of circumstances, which it encompasses fraud, racketeering, extortion, sabotage, corruption, and even assassinations. And
Well, you know, I'm not doubting anything. I'm just saying let's try and make it more concrete for the viewer so they can actually, you know, make it tangible. So, like, what were some of the actual things that they did? And I'm sure some of it stemmed from TARP too. I saw one of your huge complaints was TARP, the bailout that went through was pushed by both, you know, political parties, and yeah, I want you to kind of talk about TARP and some of the more concrete charges that you're seeking.
well, I think that there are certain facts that were sort of glossed over, and if you ask most Americans, you know, about the whole TARP bailout, they will tell you things that you'd say and I'm talking about people that you would say are informed. But they'll tell you things that are just simply not true, and the reason being is that it's what the mainstream media told them. For instance, everyone all thought that it was $700 billion that was used to bail out certain select banks, the ones that are deemed to be too big to fail. But in reality, it was in the multiple billions. And as an example, Morgan Stanley was the bank that received the most. Out of that $700 billion, it was reported that $10 billion was used to save them, right? But the reality is that they were secretly issued $107 billion. So it's more than 10 times that amount. And it was done secretly by the Federal Reserve. They basically print money out of thin air, and then they lend it out at zero interest rate. So it's really pretty easy to make money that's basically free on the lending end, and then you then deploy it for your other activities. But it's really it's Morgan Stanley's involvement in actual, you know, widespread criminal activities that is important that the public know that we bailed out a firm that engages in these types of activities. Now, I am not saying that all people within banking are wayward at all. It's really just a select few. Unfortunately, it tends to be the people who are at the very top. And that was the case with Morgan Stanley, and that's known as kakistocracy, where it's the people who are at the decision-making position are really the very worst that humanity has to offer. And that's really what's transpired here. And so the whole saga of what then transpired is laid out here. And what's interesting is that it's linked to so many scandals that people know about. And for instance, I mentioned it's the subprime mortgage market meltdown. Right? The guys who were involved in this initial infraction, if you will, were the same people that helped facilitate that massive fraud on global investors. The Duke lacrosse scandal that had hit the national media. That, if you remember, that was a
I live in North. I live like 100 miles away from it.
Yeah, so you were right there.
I heard about it. Yeah.
As was I. My oldest son was on the team, and then also the Facebook IPO fiasco. Morgan Stanley Gate is also linked to that. There are so many elements of the Occupy movement in terms of what people were, what they wanted, what their greatest beefs were, is linked directly to this. The revelations of NSA snooping. There's a lot more to that now, and it's not just the NSA, and even believe it or not, the Obamacare website debacle. The woman that headed it up, Kathleen Sebelius, at the time, she was involved she appointed certain judges when she was governor of Kansas. And some of these judges are the most corrupt you can imagine. And so it's all those things. It also relates to the worst bank foreclosure fraud in U.S. history. If you were to Google that, I will come up as your #1 result. There's the whole notion of police state brutality. You see it all the time. I've got some insights associated with that. Probably the one thing that's really outlandish is the widespread judicial corruption that's in place. So basically, so many cases are decided just by who's paying the money. So the notion of justice has gone out the door, and then there's the continued erosion of constitutional rights, the assault on American civil liberties, and so these are all factors to this story. What I'm looking to do here is with this book, and there are, without question, there will be plenty of people that will try and discredit it, and we're prepared for that. And that's why there's this multimedia component, or it's a different type of format, so that those people who want to see the actual evidence of it can actually go directly to that. And so I do invite folks to challenge, because some of these stories will appear to be so outlandish you'd say that can't possibly be true. And in this case, it is. And then what I'm looking to do here is that in splitting the half of all proceeds from the book will serve to help others who've been similarly victimized. And there are a lot of people who have been so victimized. It also there's a I guess a methodology is going to be employed for mobilizing others to join, and by so doing, there's a way that they would be rewarded financially, perhaps significantly, if they were to do it. So I've covered a lot. There's a lot to this book, and so that's probably the best overview I can provide.
Hey, fair enough. Hey, let me let's connect here for a second and build some synergy before we go to building solutions, because I know there's indictments and et cetera. One of the things for Voluntary Virtues Network that we try to do is advance the message that peaceful people who don't infringe on others, they can do whatever they want. Now, along with that, when we start talking about regulations, we don't believe that government regulations will make this. To us, it's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on this huge sore when you have the state system that basically subsidizes and creates this moral hazard where you have people spending money, subsidizing losses to the taxpayer, but keeping and privatizing gains, right? That is created from a state network, and that regulation network is actually what built up the system and gave special advantages to a few people. So one of the things from our network is, we're not for any of the people who've been in bed with the bailouts and stuff like that. Obviously, that's the extreme opposite of what we want. But at the same time, we don't feel that regulations, if you just go and put Graham Leach back into place or something like that, or the Glass-Steagall Act, I don't think that is what created some downfall. We see it more as the fact that the regulatory system itself is simply inefficient and will never be able, this violent monopoly will never be able to impose or mandate good financial services, and that the market's going to have to regulate itself. Basically, buyer beware. Don't fall into this moral hazard that you're going to be safe because the state has some regulators out there. That's to us like the lie that we're trying to break, is saying, don't, just because there's some regulators over here saying that they can check off this checklist and say, well, we said this is illegal, we said that's illegal, we said we're going to go chase down the people for this, and we're going to go throw people in cages for that. To us, that doesn't mean that we're going to have a safe financial system. If anything, that just means it's much more red tape for us entrepreneurs to jump through. So one of the things is, when we're looking at solutions here, what kind of solutions, what do you see from the regulatory agencies? Do you think there should be more of them, less of them? Give us a taste for your ideals for solutions other than indictments, because I don't think really indicting any of these people is going to do anything. I think most people are just going to, it's the system, they're a violent monopoly, they're just going to be able to get away with it. It's like police brutality. Sure, but it's a violent monopoly. They might have actually brutalized your family member, your friend, or you, but you're never going to get any justice out of the system because they are the ones who control the courts and the arbitration system. We're not open to choice here, right? This is not a free society. Unfortunately, we're stuck into a violent monopoly, and they have the control, and we don't. And that's how it works. So we don't see empowering this violent monopoly, which has given the special advantages, which creates state incorporation, which creates the moral hazards and bailouts and et cetera. We don't believe that the state regulatory agencies are the ones that are going to come to the rescue here. We see them as the root problem from the very beginning. They help exacerbate the booms and busts of the business cycle, not minimize them. So we're trying to see where you're coming from solution-wise.
Well, I don't think there's anything that I said that would be in support of more regulation. Really, where I'm coming from is and I don't agree with your point about we just have to accept the system as it is. The point of the matter is that.
Oh, I think that's a little unfair because it's kind of straw manning my position. I never said we should accept the system as is. I want to change the system. I don't think that you're going to see much change. That's the difference from me saying I don't think you're going to see much change, and there's a difference between that and me saying I don't want change. I want change. I just don't think you're going to see it. So you see what I'm saying? I just have to clarify my position.
But I think what I'm saying is that we can make those changes. In fact, that sort of attitude would have prevented the creation of the United States. In other words,
I think there's another misinterpretation here. Let me clarify, because you're talking about. I think that you can change. I don't think you can change inside of a violent monopoly system. I think we can. The reason I talk to people is because I think they can change. Because I think we can move towards a better society and change. I just don't think that the political system is made. The political system is concrete. It's static. It doesn't want change. It sells you the lie that it wants change.
I totally agree. I mean, the whole idea of instigating change is not by playing according to their rules, because those rules are rigged, so you can't possibly win. So everything that I'm looking to launch here is in the context of having it take on a life of its own, such that people will undertake actions that will be outside the box, and that's the only way we're going to be able to affect change. So I think you and I are definitely seeing eye to eye on that. And there's nothing in terms of what I'm looking to do here that that anyone would say is operating within the confines of this rigged system. It can't work. You're absolutely right. It would fail. And because that's what I had tried early on, without really knowing the extent of the efforts that were going to be employed to cover it up. What's happened here is that there's been so many outlandish things that are just so over the top illegal that by just going after the few people, exposing them as such, that all of a sudden it should then take on a life of its own. So that's where I'm coming from. And what's unique is that no one would expect a former Wall Street executive insider to be the one who wants to lead these sort of changes.
And just to let you know, ostracism is well within the libertarian legal order. So we would agree with an ostracism strategy of, hey, this person did bad, and call them out in public. I mean, that's perfectly within freedom. I'm going to open this up to the panelists. I'm sure we have plenty of comments and questions. Go ahead, guys. Robert, looks like you unmuted first.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I was going to go through kind of like a shotgun approach of like, question, like in quick one-sentence responses or answers to kind of like bullet point the issues that are being brought to bear by your website and the things that you're trying to get out there. So if you're okay with that, Michael, then I'll go for it and I'll just drill through them.
Go ahead. That's fine. I like it.
All right. So as far as I understand it, you have a variety of charges that are being leveled, a variety of fraud charges specifically. So you have fraud for employment fraud. In like one sentence, two sentences, what is that?
Well, to be clear, that the employment fraud is probably not something that's going to get adjudicated because it happened long ago. It's what's transpired since then.
Okay.
And
but what is employment fraud?
Well, what it is, in this case, it's punishing the person who created something of tremendous value, and then destroying that person's career, so that that person would not be able to impact the value of that massive franchise asset. Right. In this case, it was worth $250 million. But that's, as I said, that was what happened early on.
Yeah, we can move on from that. All right, then I see on another website that was related to this, we have rejecting receipts and deposits from rent remittances and tenants. Basically, tenants paid their bills for the rent, but it wasn't recorded. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, now what you're addressing is the bank foreclosure fraud, and that's the most significant item. Now, the thing is that I was involved in establishing the commercial mortgage-backed business at J.P. Morgan. I know commercial mortgage-backed securities inside and out, the whole notion of mortgages. And so what I can do is I can lay out, and it's already been posted online. I can articulate precisely each instance of fraud that's perpetrated. But in this case, it's basically saying, taking a mortgage that was never late, it was been fully paid, and in one case, one mortgage was completely paid off, and then foreclosing on it, which is the most ludicrous thing in the world.
Right.
And the way they got away with it was by threatening any attorney who would dare represent me, and so that in itself is illegal too. But that's the way they get away with it. I'm not the only person that they've done it to. I happen to be someone who has the knowledge base who can expose all of their fraud and then engage the resources to then do something about it. That's the game plan.
Okay. So if I could, though, when we go through these, I see that there's a long list of things that I want to get to. So just a quick yes kind of response, or like clarify it if need be. But so I just want to see where the victims are, because when it comes to crime, in my mind, and I would say with pretty much the rest of the panel, if there's no victim, there's no crime. And so when you're claiming fraud of a particular sort, let's say, for example, spreading rumors about somebody, the changing of a person's opinion about another person is not necessarily a crime, even though there's somebody who doesn't who loses out on that. But then if they actually provide information to stockholders that's false, and they invest with somebody, then that might be, that would be fraud, because they're representing their product as being one thing and it's actually another, so that's theft. So anyway, on these, you had fraudulent monetary defaults. So basically, they filed a claim that they had certain defaults, and they didn't. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, actually, what I'm saying is that they declared a mortgage to be in default when it wasn't. In other words, they all the money was paid for it. So that, and then plus I also have the filed regulatory documents that also prove that. So it's patently obvious there. Okay,
and then we have embezzlement via fraudulent exercise of assignment of rents. So basically, what that is that they stole money by changing the accounting information. Rent.
What they did is that by saying, okay, this mortgage, by just making up things, mortgage is in default, which it wasn't.
I see.
And then diverting all the monies. In other words, that they, in commercial mortgages, that they can then appoint a receiver. And so what they did is then they appointed a receiver. But what was really diabolical about it is that they timed it, because they monitored every activity that was going on in my life, so to speak. And at the time, my wife of 24 years had just been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So they timed this to intercept all monies so that I was not able to then fund her cancer treatment. It's the most insidious thing that you could even imagine. And the fact that they would make up something patently false and have the regulatory records of their own that they prepared themselves prove that to be the case. And that's what's known as a smoking gun. And
right.
You're going through very specific points. There are 20 instances of fraud associated just with that one foreclosure of that one property.
Right.
But then there's, let me give you another example, where they had money that was used that they had taken in, that I had directed them to then pay off a residential mortgage, right? They didn't do that. And so even though that mortgage was paid in full, they foreclosed on it. They employed a SWAT team to physically remove me and taser me to no end. That's something that should really run fear throughout every person, because the fact that someone could just make this up and then invade their home, which is absolutely goes contrary to every element of voluntarism, right? I mean, that is an assault of the worst kind, and so that's an example here. And so if you go to if you do, and I do encourage people to just Google the worst bank foreclosure fraud in U.S. history, it will take you to a link that explains why that is the case.
So as far as I understand it, then what we have here is a claim that a property was not paid, that they needed to do a foreclosure, and then they contacted the police state to enforce their claim, which was a fraudulent claim, and then the police forces came out and abused the occupants and created financial difficulties for everyone involved.
True.
Yeah. Okay. So then, as far as the plaintiffs, I've seen that you've got yourself and some other family members, but then you're saying that this conspiracy is, or not necessarily conspiracy, but these offenses were not only your family, but other parties that were also affected through potentially identity theft and other activities. Is that correct?
Identity theft. I'm not sure where you get that from.
That there were, let's see here, this is 35 victims known to date. And you've got, let's see here, a list of 35 of cyber attacks that have oddly originated from the same farmhouse in Potwin, Kansas. Each victim's name is hyperlinked with information concerning the nature of the cyber attacks perpetrated.
Yeah, you're covering another element to this. What had happened is that I was subjected to some cyber attacks that I traced back to this house it was a farmhouse in rural Kansas, and I thought nothing of it, right? But I wanted to find out who was behind this, and what they did is they basically sent out all these vicious, disparaging emails about me to my family members, right? And it's all pursuant to this divide and conquer strategy that they employed. But what I did is I posted it online, but since then, I had actually there's now up to 37 people now have separately contacted me and said that they've been victimized by a variety of forms of cyber crimes, and they've all traced back to the same farmhouse in Potwin, Kansas. And so this has become a much bigger issue just by linking, by its linkage and association. And in some of those cyber crimes are actually related to human, sex slave trafficking, threats of bodily injury, and actually threats of murder. There's a whole variety of things that transpired that didn't happen to me, but it happened to these other people, and it all emanated from this same very odd locale.
But as far as evidence to tie it in with the Morgan Stanley thing, we don't necessarily have that yet.
Well, it is what I just said. In other words, it's a link that
we don't know that the property is owned
by identifying. By the way, the NSA, FBI, U.S. government has technology. They know who's responsible for this, even if they run everything through that as a sort of a way to try and protect the identity. And just that investigation alone will shed light on a whole bunch of issues. But I wanted to be clear in terms of the identity theft. No one stole my identity, and they wouldn't want to, because these guys had besmirched my credit, because I used to have like a FICO score that near the highest, 850, whatever it is, and so they destroyed it. So no one would want it. No one would not want to steal my identity at this point. But there were other people that did have identity theft. They had their email accounts hacked. They had their Facebook accounts hacked. And it all emanated from the same location.
Yeah.
And that's the association.
Yeah.
And the FBI supposedly that their IC3 division is investigating that now.
But as far as what the heck?
A chance to do something.
Damn it!
Oh, you gotta love the ads. Kruger, what are you trying to go with this? Because we got other people want to ask, because we have to go to commercial too here in a second. Robert, can you hear us? All right, so we're having some technical difficulties with Robert. Guys, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next question. Who wants to pitch in? Cody, Garrett, Rothschild, looks like you were away. Who wants to go next?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. First of all, I apologize I haven't had a chance to look your site much, but could you solidify a little bit about what you're offering here? You mentioned that this is somewhat like a book.
Yeah,
something that you're trying to expose here, all of these things with, so I was wondering if you could just clarify that a little bit, because I'm a little confused as far as that. But really, more importantly, what I'm trying is, what your end goal here? What would you like to see come of this, besides just public awareness? What would you like to see come of the exposure of all of this?
Well, in a word, justice, and the form of justice would be the launching of activism initiatives focused on very specific people in different states that, if I were to classify it, it'd be in three primary areas. It would be in foreclosure fraud, it would be judicial corruption, and police brutality. And and there's a way that we're looking to mobilize a very large group of people, and it's with the assistance of a postdoctoral team for MIT that came up with this very unique method of mobilizing a large group of people to solve some complex problems and do it in a very expeditious fashion. And it's been put to the test through a contest that was sponsored by the Defense Department. And so with the publishing of this book, it would raise the awareness. It would then we would then be launching this mobilization effort to have certain people head up projects, and where there's a great deal of money involved here. The franchise value is in the billions, and that all proceeds from settlements and actual judgments would then be used. I guess the lion's share of it would be used to then help others who just don't have the resources or the wherewithal or knowledge to go after those who wrong them. And so that's what we're looking to do here with this book. And that's why we came up with this story saga quest more. It's a lot more than these elements. It is the ideal situation would be to then say, for other people to feel that they're not alone and that they now have a voice. It's been articulated for them, and they'd say, yeah, that happened to me, and then have enough people say, I'm really sick of the way the status quo is right now. It's a rigged system to benefit an undeserving select few at the expense of oppressing a vast many. And that is the ultimate goal behind this book.
All right, now good stuff. And thank you for the question, Cody. Kruger, you had another comment or question. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm looking through and I'm seeing a variety of some other sites that are associated with this. Are you familiar with cableinch.com?
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with all of them. I basically had to learn about 75 different application software applications to build all of these websites. So yeah, I'm conversant in it.
Okay, so Cable Inch is it says cover up, artifice, bad mouthing, larceny, eviction, indictment in North Carolina's heartland, is the acronym there. Is this a site that you produced, or is it a site that someone else produced?
Oh, I produced it all, and it relates to the cover-up activities that were executed in North Carolina.
Okay, cool. Yep. All right, and in this, I'm seeing some the links to the fraud elements and so on, and I'm thinking that maybe, I don't know, maybe I've got some sort of computer virus or something on my computer or something, because when I go in here next to the items as I go through the fraud elements, I'm seeing some scantily clad women images.
No, you don't have any. There's no virus there. That was done purposefully. It was done somewhat tongue in cheek, and it was to because I had made a very large group of people who are in a position to help, aware of this fraud, and they didn't do anything about it. And the reason why they didn't do anything about it is that they're part of the problem. And so what I did is for each of the elements of fraud, I said I had a picture of a scantily clad woman there to bring attention to it, and simply for that. And so that's the reason why that was done.
Okay, so I was thinking that maybe it might be somehow associated with the breast cancer awareness thing that you're promoting, or that's just coincidence.
There are other elements to it. I want to get into all of it, but the primary reason why that was done was to be attention getting.
Oh, okay, I got it. Okay, and then as far as the claims that have been filed with the criminal indictment, that was back in 2010. You have cited Bob Hatley, Jim Hoos, Matt Davis, Martin Morton, and a couple others. The claim that you filed there that you were represented by an attorney. You had some attorneys then back out of being representing you. Is that correct?
Actually, I was represented by some of the best, most prestigious law firms in North Carolina at different stages.
Yeah, and then they backed out because of pressure from Morgan Stanley. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, they were either paid off or they were threatened.
I see.
Proceed to represent my interest, there would be dire consequences.
All right. So basically, as far as we have an understanding that there is an attempt to undermine your particular claims, that Morgan Stanley is using their money and influence, power and influence, to prevent these things from coming to light through the government system and so on. And your goal is to somehow get past that anyway because of your ability to communicate and draw attention with a variety of different methods. And it so far hasn't been very successful. Is that correct?
Correct. And the reason that it hasn't been is because of what we talked about early on, is that I went through the system, and the system is rigged to protect those that perpetrate these crimes. What I'm now doing is going after, think of it this way, it's a long link chain of corruption.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing is I'm pinpointing very specific weak links where there's just no way you can defend it. And then once you go after those links, then the whole thing starts to come apart. And that's what we're looking to do here. And we're focusing on the things that were done of recent. Like, for instance, I caught a judge who was involved in grand larceny, and it's so brazen, it's unbelievable. And so what he would regularly do is he would just rob people, and then if they balked at it, then he'd go and arrest them for just made up charges. And so that's something that is just, it's so blatant that by going after that one piece, then all of a sudden things start to unravel. And there are other instances, and that was where I was attacked by a second SWAT team.
Okay, so I think that now we've got a bit more clear understanding of some of the claims and some of the issues that are going on there. Unfortunately, we do have to go to a break, but Michael, go ahead and describe what we're going to do.
Well, this is the thing, Spencer. Do you have a few more minutes? You want to stick around with us for? We have about a 4-minute break. When we come back, we can keep you around.
I'm happy to do so if as long as you have me.
Yeah, definitely. All right, because we do want to go more into this, and we don't want to gloss over this. If it's a really serious thing, we want to make sure it's handled. So, just stick with us, and we'll be right back, guys. Thank you for listening to Voluntary Virtues Network. Do you have a family member or friend who only follows the mainstream media? Can't get them to think outside the mainstream news box? Well, the people over at staticmediahub.com hope to fix that problem. Staticmediahub.com is an up-to-the-minute news site that showcases voluntarist ideals and the basic information of a stateless society, all while giving the facade of a mainstream news network. Staticmediahub.com features ideals from individuals such as Adam Kokesh, Larkin Rose, Travis Wilson from the Jefferson Papers, and myself, Mike Shanklin. Find staticmediahub.com on Facebook. Like and share our articles, and let's show our friends of liberty on their time, ways they feel comfortable. A mainstream field with a practice. Mediahub.com. Today, and publishing platform. As we're sure many of you know, anarcho-capitalist and prominent economist Jeffrey Tucker, who studied closely with Murray Rothbard, is spearheading this project. He calls it a city in the cloud, and he says it's going to revolutionize the way you think and interact within the Liberty community. Not only does every member get their very own turnkey publishing platform beautifully stylized, but they also get intimate connections with acclaimed industry-wide experts. Right now, you can secure your membership at 58% off and receive tons of extra perks by purchasing your membership through their GoGo campaign. Just head over to liberty.me and follow the links. Don't forget to keep up with their latest updates by following them on Twitter and on Facebook. Liberty.me. Liberty lives here.
Well, my fellow Americans, There are a lot of terrible things on the internet, not the least of which is ChristopherCantwell.com. Now, let me be clear. This is not your average partisan bickering. This is sedition. He is an anarchist. He is an atheist, and he is an asshole. If you read this blog, you may be indefinitely detained without a trial or assassinated by a drone, so don't do it. God bless the United States of America, and goddamn ChristopherCantwell.com. Now, my fellow Americans, there are a lot of terrible things on the internet, not the least of which is ChristopherCantwell.com. Now, let me be clear. This is not your average partisan bickering.
You've read books, attended lectures, and you know the Constitution well enough to know it's a well-crafted blueprint to create an ever-increasing federal empire. But there's still one thing missing. Buttons. Freedom Fiends now has buttons. You'll get state speech is hate speech, guns and weed, buy sheep for sheep on sheep, and 2 designs for the Freedom Fiends. Wear them with pride. Use them to start conversations with statists. It's only $10 for 10 buttons, including shipping. Go to freedomjeans.com and click on the link at the top that says Buttons.
Do you like individual freedom, self-ownership, responsibility, peaceful interaction, or just politics and philosophy in general? Do you like articles, videos, pics, and memes, informative materials that educate on a free world? Then you need to join the #1 largest voluntarist Facebook page in the world, Statism is Slavery. With multiple passionate admins and a drive to bring you the facts, not only pertaining to economics and or politics, but life in general, Statism is Slavery is your #1 spot to connect with almost 175,000 freedom lovers. We also have a free bumper sticker giveaway for best comment almost every day. Just go to facebook.com/statism-makes-you-a-slave or simply search for Statism is Slavery on your search engine and click the like button to subscribe. Thank you for supporting freedom by supporting Statism is Slavery, the #1 voluntarism Facebook page in the world.
Attention humans, I come to you from a desperate future, one in which all of the humans are dead. For many years we have been running calculations to determine the most impactful point of failure that led to the demise of your species. It has been determined that too many of you were not listening to the Ed and Ethan podcast. Listen often, share with your friends, donate to the show, and visit edandethan.com. You have been
All right, welcome back, everybody, to Voluntary Virtues Network. We are having a wonderful guest right now, wonderful discussion, too. It's really going into the financial sector, as well as government corruption, etc. So we have Spencer Young with us. We've had a wonderful last 50 minutes with him. We still have some questions from the panel. I think, Robert, you're on to something here. I know you have some points you want to make real quick, so we got to finish this up. Let's try and do that right now.
Yeah, just so you know, I muted you during the commercials there, Spencer, so unmute yourself at the top of the screen if you are going to have anything to comment on. All right, so bottom line is that we have some problems that are going on basically because Morgan Stanley has a lot of power and influence through their connections with the government and the system that is supposed to provide justice and arbitration for these claims. And since we have such a powerful lobby, powerful group that has so many connections, realistically, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I don't think you're going to get justice. I think that you're pretty much going to be out of luck on this. And what I guess is the only saving grace from this is that perhaps your message can be told to people so that they can understand how truly vicious and vile having a monopoly that is the government running the show when it comes to deciding how arbitration should work and how justice should be dispensed, and instead of being able to have an unaffiliated, totally not paid and bought arbitrator, you're stuck with this. So let's look at options that would actually have prevented this in the first place by having a competing marketplace of arbitration services that would be like courts, and instead of having oversight being done by one group, you have a variety of regulation agencies that are involved where you can pick from which one it is that you want to have to ensure that your business partner is doing what they say they're going to do. By having some competition in these realms, when companies get away with murder, so to speak, you know, you can actually start to influence people to go to other systems, you know, another company that's going to provide a better quality of a service to protect you in your pursuit of justice.
Well, I think the your initial thoughts are really very dangerous, and the reason why I say they're dangerous is that they're basically fatalistic, saying, "Look, things suck. It's a terrible system. You know, life's a bitch. You gotta deal with it. Move on." That's what they want me to do, right? And so there's something that tells me that you're doing others a disservice by making those sorts of statements. I mentioned before early on that the whole notion of the creation of the United States of America. If we said that, look, it's a rigged system. We're going to have to just deal with the taxes that King George III puts on us because we can't fight it, you know. And it's exactly that mentality that things don't get done. Not only do they not get done, things get a lot worse. And I'm at the point where there are certain things that these guys have done that are so over the top that if enough people understand what was done here, it's the power of the people. We the people say, look, this is crazy, this should never happen. But not only that, there'll be a lot of people that'll come out of the woodwork and they'll say, geez, that happened to me also. And so it's by doing something about when you see something that's wrong, if you just let it happen, then it's going to be a fait accompli. If you say, no, I don't want this, I don't believe in this, this is contrary to everything that I stand for and everything that I understand that this country stands for, then it's really those people who would then be leading these sort of initiatives. And then what I'm looking to do here is I'm not looking to lead an entirely revised Occupy movement, but I'd love to be a person who instigates others to then take up and go after specific areas. Because if enough people do it, that's where you affect change. And just so you know, we're seeing these sort of things happen all over the world. It's been manifesting in the form of massive revolutions and, unfortunately, bloodletting. I think this can be done in a very peaceful manner as long as people are made aware of what's happened and that they band together to do so. In this case, I believe I will be able to do that.
I think there's a miscommunication here.
Yeah, just don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you should give up the fight. Not at all.
Right.
Well, I think you said that it's,
I think that it's unfortunate that the fight is going to have to, that it's going to have to happen, but
no.
They kind of hold all the cards in a lot of ways, but in any case, Michael,
That's the point right there. Is what it's not about all the other stuff. What it is about is that what is the system? It's a violent monopoly. They have their buddies inside of this system. The state is there to give advantages to people and to disadvantage other people. State is a forced hierarchy system where somebody's propped up over somebody else. This is an inevitable result of what happens when you're stuck inside of this system. So one of the problems is, let's say you push through regulations, the people who are going to be writing the regulations are those people who have the lobbyists that go into this sector. So what we need to do is stop playing this merry-go-round game where we keep throwing lobbyists back in here trying to do good regulations, and we always get the crapshoot. What we need to do is decentralize all of this decision-making back to a praxeological individual level where we, the individuals, buyer beware. It is no moral hazards that the state has come up here and says, well, now you have this Federal Reserve. That's always the value of it, right? It doesn't limit booms and busts. It exasperates them, makes them larger. The margins. The problem here that we're trying to say is not to give up the fight, is to continue the fight. The only logical way, which is to say, fighting inside of this violent monopoly, is just, it's fruitless. What you need to do is push for a truly free society where there is no violent monopoly. It seems like a dart in the air. It seems like you're never going to hit the target, right? Or like you're shooting out into the wilderness, right? Overkill to the max. But the reality is that is the only responsible position. After all the years I've been doing this, I used to be a Democrat, kind of was like a Republican for like some of the economic freedom things like, a decade ago. And ever since then, it's just been a wide open thing stating to me, moral hazards all over the place. This system is a forced hierarchy system. So trying to fight inside of this system is ridiculous. Let's go make our own system. And this is why so many people are like the Gold Skulch, the Free State Project, etc., trying to build up a freer region on their own and break away from this, just like, as you were mentioning earlier, the revolutionist America or West America, or North America in this case was with the founders to break away to, right? We don't have this other magical land. Maybe we do want to fight. We do want to continue to spread the message and to educate others on this. We just don't think that going through the regulatory process of the political system is going to, that you're just wasting your time. All the time that you could, this is an opportunity cost argument from an economist perspective. You have a certain amount of years in your life, 60, 80, 100, hopefully longer than that as we get older and life expectancy continues to increase, but limited time nonetheless, right? Time is scarce. Even Bill Gates has time scarcity, right? So my point being is you have a limited amount of time to make a real change. And every minute that you waste spending inside of the political system trying to change the arbiters of the political system, this violent monopoly, you're not going to create any change. You're only reinforcing this horrible system instead of doing what we think is the only responsible and ethical choice, which is opting out of the whole thing and saying, listen, we want to open up arbitration. We don't want to have a violent monopoly. We don't want to have all these fake regulations that create more of the moral hazards rather than fixing anything, right? So that's our whole point, is we want to fight in the way of saying this whole thing's a joke, this violent monopoly, that we don't need violent monopolies. Let's decentralize all of this decision-making back down to the individual level.
Well, perhaps you would need to read the book, but that's precisely what I'm looking to do here. I am not looking to operate within the system. It can't work. I've already been there, done that. This is to incite others to go outside what the normal call it system is, and go after, identify the people that are they're so brazen in what they do that it's very easy to then get public opinion against them and force those changes. We see that happen all the time. This doesn't happen enough, but that's exactly what I'm looking to do here. And
Spencer,
go ahead, Garrett. Go ahead, Garrett.
Just let me comment quickly here. I'm Garrett, and I think what you're trying to propose here is something that in the free market could actually produce, is an exposing kind of firm, a firm that would be there to point out where fraud is taking place in the marketplace. Is that kind of what you're saying? With exposing what's happened to you and inspiring other people to expose what's happened to them, and through that allow people to have interactions that are free from fraud. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like,
no,
just exposing the stuff right now?
Well, here's what I'm saying is that there are very specific actions that were taken to cover up the full extent of wrongdoing. Now, the way it would play out is that we go after, as I mentioned, where the weak links are, where it's just it's a no-brainer. That as long as you have objective people that would be actually adjudicating it, if you will, but I'm using that term very loosely. But as long as you have people saying, okay, this is so wrong, this is so over the top, that that this needs to be corrected, then
okay. So how do they correct it? That's the thing, though. You're exposing it, and I get that. But how do they correct it? Like that, I see the only way to correct it is for them to just avoid doing business with those people that they're exposing.
Well, what we're talking about here, these are felonies. And what we're talking about here is that making an example of those people that committed those felonies. There are so many people in the U.S. that are saying what happened to all of the bankers that none of them in prison? In this case, the evidence is so overwhelming. Now, it's likely not going to send any Morgan Stanley bankers to prison unless someone makes some really dumb mistakes along the way. But it's going to take, like as an example, some of the folks at Paragon. What they did is so over the top. There's no way you can explain that away. They committed felonies, and that would be an example of then going after and making an example of people. If people see that, you're going to see that it tends to be like a sort of a snowball that you push down a hill. It starts, other people start saying, hey, wait a second, that happened to me, as an example. When I was in court to say, hey, this is a fraud here, and I was denied being able to even present the obvious evidence because I didn't have an attorney, there were other people who had the same problem. They were saying, I can't hire an attorney. They all get threatened. So, so by going after very specific instances of where there's just
like going after them through the court system, going after them through exposing the laws that they've broken, but not exposing them just for the blatant moral things that they did wrong. More trying to get a case against them. Is that what you're saying?
Well, there's two avenues. One is the criminal path where they broke the law from in terms of felonies, and then there's the civil side, and then there's the public image side. If you go after and expose the full extent of wrongdoing, the viability of some of these operations will be at risk, and people will want to say.
I think that's the greatest way to do it. I think that's how you will gain your most success in justice. I think the other options through the court system aren't going to be very successful, and I'll agree with my other panelists on here with that. But I think exposing them through the public image side of things is where, in a free market scenario, in a free society, that's where most of justice will come from.
Yeah, it's in the court of public.
Well, the problem here is we're forced to buy from Morgan Stanley. Okay, when they bail out companies. This is the thing. This is what we're trying to get at here. The problem isn't that we can't scream to the people. The problem isn't that the people can't hear and understand. The problem is that they steal our money from us and give it to these corrupt vassals, okay? That's the real problem here, is the theft. The money. It's all about the money is the fence in the cage of statism that we're living in, right? This is what creates the world that we're around. This is what creates all this stuff is the theft. So once you get rid of the theft, they wouldn't be able to subsidize this company to keep it in business. It was supposedly too big to fail. The reason they said they had to pay it was so it wouldn't go out of business, which is a market signal saying it should have. So the whole problem here, and then of course those investments would have just been divvied up into smaller businesses, the way the market's supposed to work, but of course government helps once again oligopolize through its regulatory agencies with the lie that it's a trust buster, that it's an anti-monopoly system, when the whole thing is an oligopolization machine. So the problem here is the money that is being stolen from us. We can't stop. We can go out and talk to the public all day long, but the violent monopoly's got the gun and it steals our wealth and pays these assholes against our free will. That's the real problem here.
Right, and it's the theft. You're absolutely right, and it's call it the court of public opinion, that is so powerful. It just has to be harnessed. And so what I'm looking to do here is I'm going after it. I'm saying, okay, this is what's been done. The extent of the wrongdoing, I assure you, when you go through all of the different elements that were employed, your head will be spinning. And you'll say, wait a second, this can't possibly have occurred. And then there'll be links to show you, oh yes it did, and here's the evidence of it.
I wouldn't doubt it.
And that's really the game plan here. It's operating outside the box, and it's then forcing the court of public opinion to say, wait a second, this is just wrong, and something needs to be done about it. And I'm structuring it such that it will be focused on helping others. That's the game plan.
All right, hey, good stuff, Spencer. I really do appreciate you coming on and talking about this tonight. My whole thing is, I wish you a lot of success spreading the message out to more people, exposing what real tangible crimes. Try to on future shows really be concrete off the bat. Say, here's the crime that they're charged with, and here's the victim. I think that would really, make it more tangible for people. But good stuff nonetheless. And also, I really think that as long as we can fight all day long and educate all day long, but we have to educate people that the real reason this is happening is because that theft is legalized still around. But we live in a society where stealing from other people is legal, and so we need to stop that. And then they wouldn't have the bailout money to give these people. They wouldn't be able to have the fiat currency system to go ahead and do bailouts through quantitative easing, etc.
And the logical question then is, well, how do you affect that? How do you change that? And I believe a way to change that is by getting it out in the public so people understand the full extent of it, because I assure you, the vast majority of people are not aware of this. You're very focused, you're very plugged into what's really going on. If you speak to the just everyday, John Q. public, they're clueless on it. So the more this gets out there, the better we all will be.
What we see here every day, every week, every month, every year, is good-hearted activists going to the public to take great stories, and they need to. One of the problems that we see stemming off of that, especially years down the road, it's not an initial thing, but it usually is secondary, is that the people turn political, and then after they turn political, it gets all muddled. It turns into another special interest fest, and it goes nowhere. People have a lot of great intentions and have a lot of great causes coming in to the things, but one of the concerns we have is that it won't turn into a stagnant political action type thing, which we're not going to see any real change down the road for this kind of a thing, and inside of a violent monopoly that is supporting the rest of the people inside of the violent monopoly. It's a good old boy network. So you can't go inside of the mafia and turn it into the United Way. It doesn't work, right? So what we need to do is create alternatives and go outside of that. That's the VVN network's belief. That's why things like Galt Skulch and trying to create some community. I don't know the exact answer. Nobody has the exact answer, or we'd have a free society right now. We wouldn't be dealing with this stuff, right? I wish that was the case. But nonetheless, Spencer, maybe we can have you on down the road within the next 6 months and have an update. How's that sound?
I appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, thank you so much, Spencer. I do appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Say good night to everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Bye-bye. So good stuff coming from Spencer. Guys, I feel for him. Obviously, he's gone through a lot of turmoil in his life. Nonetheless, he's felt cheated, needless to say, in life, and other people. He feels frauded by others.
He's definitely a victim. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And so it sounds, if what he's saying is true about some of the mortgages that were paid off that came back foreclosed down the road, that's obviously fraud. So, it sounds like there's a lot of bad stuff. I wouldn't doubt anything with government subsidization in the background, right? I mean, this is the downside, unfortunately, is once again it comes back to the money. This is what I've always been trying to hammer on, is as long as they are allowed to steal from us and give to these assholes, we're not going to be able to stop this cycle. And this is what the state produces. The state produces a good old boy network, and the money keeps rotating on this merry-go-round. It's really sad, What do you? I see you over there, Robert. Go ahead.
Well, the thing that I think is important for people from the Occupy Wall Street movement to realize is that when Morgan Stanley did what they did, it wasn't Morgan Stanley employees that went to the door and tasered him. Okay? It wasn't the Morgan Stanley people who went and evicted him from his home. It was the government that did these things. And the government is available to be. It's a gun that's available to be bought and paid for by any person, any company with power and influence, and they will buy it. It will always be for sale, and someone will buy it and put that gun to somebody's head and tell them to do X, Y, or Z, whether it's taking your property or whether it is moving you out of your home, causing you all sorts of reputation issues and in fraudulent claims. All of these things are a result of a power system that creates an incentive for people to buy it. If you don't have the power that can be bought and sold, you've got the power to do anything you freaking want, really. I mean, as far as the government is concerned, all we have to do is just write it on some paper, and now we can do it. And once that's the case, you can sell it to anybody, and if you don't have that system of power, you can't sell it. So
I think this is the perfect time. I think this is the perfect time for the analogy of saying, listen, the reality of a government, a state society is, like you have been saying previously over the last few months, Robert, especially, that whether you like it or not, you could actually have like a room full of really good people, but then some asshole comes into this room called, our society, and just imagine we're in this room together, right, on this landmass, we'll call it, but it's a room, and it's blocked off. Somebody comes in and puts the gun in the middle of the room and says, I'm going to turn off the lights, and when I turn them back on, whoever has the gun gets to point it at everybody else. Most of the people might not even want to play this game, right? It's like they're forced into this Russian roulette. That's it's like one step away from Russian roulette, right? So that's the game that we're forced to play in a state-based society with this violent monopoly. And so what happened is Morgan Stanley was one of the first ones to pick up the gun and point it at everybody else. And so they have a lot of special advantages on their end, a lot of connections, and a good old boy network that they're in bed with. And if you try to expose any of this, well, you can ask Edward Snowden, Mr. 6 figures a year living in Hawaii with a wife and loving it and beautiful weather. Now he's stuck in some damn tundra region of Russia. My point is, unfortunately, with a state-based system, this is an inevitable result, is what I'm trying to get at. So go ahead, Robert.
Well, you know what? Being the king of segues, what we have here is basically, if you have a system that creates a government agency that can change the size of the net that you have to kick the ball into, if you say to your players, still have to kick the ball into this size net when the net is wide open, well, then you're probably going to have some people shooting 7-1 on you when you're in the World Cup.
You just saw that game too? It was ridiculous. I saw that 18-minute span. Anyway, no, good stuff, guys. Anybody else want to add to this before we move on? We got to move on.
Think we're good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Nothing that won't be hit on later. I think that's...
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So, on that note, I think we should go ahead and go to radio break. Guys, we'll be right back on the Voluntary Virtues Network. Thank you so much.
Do you have a family member or friend who only follows the mainstream media? Can't get them to think outside the mainstream news box? Well, the people over at staticmediahub.com hope to fix that problem. StaticMediaHub.com is an up-to-the-minute news site that showcases voluntarist ideals and the basic information of a stateless society, all while giving the facade of a mainstream news network. StaticMediaHub.com features ideals from individuals such as Adam Kokesh, Larkin Rose, Travis Wilson from the Jefferson Papers, and myself, Mike Shanklin. Find StaticMediaHub.com on Facebook, like and share our articles, and let's show our friends and loved ones the true message of liberty on their time and in ways they feel comfortable. A mainstream field with a practical approach. StaticMediaHub.com.
Hi, my name is Leah. I'm a homeschooling mom, and I'm also an independent recording artist. I love heavy metal and Celtic and world music, and have a lot of fun fusing together different elements. I'm also a big believer in libertarian ideas, and I think it's crucial to communicate the need to fight for freedom and oppose tyrannical powers, whether it's in the form of political analysis or Middle-earth folktales. It's an exciting day that we live in, and I hope to contribute, even in a small way, in the fight for freedom. Join me in recording and producing my third studio album at www.leahmusic.net.
Barack Obama is trying to change political fashion.
Barack Obama was seen Thursday wearing a black and gold flag pin sold at shinybadges.com.
Obama has said his story wouldn't be possible if it weren't for the values that pin represents.
Voluntaryism is a philosophy of property rights and non-aggression.
That's not our flag. If you wear the pin, then you're not a true patriot.
Barack Obama does not approve of this message. Any similarity to any real president, alive or dead, is purely coincidental. To see quality liberty-themed lapel pins, go to shinybadges.com. We accept silver, Bitcoin, and for a limited time, even Federal Reserve notes. This message was brought to you by the letter V.
Join Daryl W. Perry on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio as he brings you news, views, and opinions. The show is live from LRN FM studio in Keene. Sunday, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. FPPradio.com.
Do
you like gold and silver but don't want to carry around a bulky bag of coins? Would you like a more modern way to trade precious metals? Try Shire Silver Cards. They fit in your wallet just like credit cards but contain real value. Get some at shiresilver.com and enjoy the convenience of a better bullion.
Americans are so rebellious. Calm down and listen to two composed Canadians.
This is how you end up with police cars burning in Acadian City.
Marriage? It sounds like the smartest straight marriage.
Political action.
No thanks.
Anything. Weekends on the Liberty Express.
There's typical Canadian media.
Just slather that donut with maple syrup.
Sorry,
Got a moose?
got my free vacanectomy at the clinic.
Want to take a ride on my Zamboni?
And then there's Ed and Ethan.
So what's the solution, Ethan?
Well, according to Keynesians, we bury a bunch of money in the ground. We'll all be rich when we dig it up.
Weekends on the Liberty Express.
Hello and welcome back to Voluntary Virtues Roundtable, everyone. This is Mike Shanklin. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. As you guys know, we just had a wonderful guest, Spencer Young, a ex-Wall Street banker, financial investor type guy. Really interesting interview we just had with him. So if you guys haven't checked that out already, you're coming in kind of late here for the show, you can always go back into the archive section later or listen even to the live version. You can actually now on YouTube go forward and backwards while the live interview is still going on. So technology keeps getting better for us, guys. Anyway, I am really excited. Unfortunately, it looks like we skimmed over most of the current events and topics for tonight, at least on this show. I'm sure I'll make some other videos on the other channel, probably over the next few days, on those topics they need to be hit on. And I have the free time, unfortunately. My other job, they're still, they don't need me quite yet. So good stuff on this front. But I also am proud and pleased to bring on another great guest, Michael Freeman. Many of you guys have probably actually seen him around on Facebook. And he was actually a combat veteran back in the day. He actually runs the Facebook page called Don't Tread on Anyone. I think he's out of Rhode Island, which is funny because Mike Dano, Dano's not in the panel tonight, but as you guys know, Dano's from Rhode Island, so you guys should get together and work out something over there. I just met him actually over at Porkfest, and he's been a libertarian, I think it was, for just over a year, and an anarchist about 6 months now. So it's kind of funny. What's the joke always? How long? What's the difference between a libertarian and an anarchist? About 6 months, right? Well, looks like he fulfilled it. Michael Freeman, welcome to Voluntary Virtues Roundtable. How are you doing tonight?
Good, man. How are you? Good to see you again.
Hey, I'm doing great, man. It's been a pretty interesting week, needless to say. I'm really excited about my other job. You know, it's lots of good success on that front, and not getting screwed over by Morgan Stanley. Anyway, no, it's good to have you on the show. For those who might not know you, I want to have you go into a little bit of detail about your environment, your past environment. How were you raised? Were your parents political or apolitical? Did they send you to private school, public school, homeschool, unschooled?
Yeah, I got a good one. My father died when I was young, 7 years old. He was in the Navy for, I don't know, 10 years or so. Died in the service, not in combat or anything like that. My mother was well, she's alive, but she's a drunk and a fiend, if you will. So I was basically a ward of the state for a pretty long time, up until 18, under DCYF, care and whatnot. Skipped around schools, was expelled once or twice. I was a young punk rocker, probably an anarchist at heart, but I didn't know all the terms and the philosophies and ideologies yet. So shaky childhood, but it was okay. I decided I needed to get out and join the Army when I was 18. Got out about 3 years ago. I'm 26 now. Did the combat thing. I had 2 separate combat arms MOSs. I was a shot cannons, and then I was a cavalry scout for about 3 years too. So yeah, I go to school now. Live in the city in Rhode Island, right? Probably 20 minutes from Mike Dano. When we are going to try to hang out too.
Cool. Yeah, well, Dano's a great guy. I've known him for a while. I just also want to mention, nice shirt. I don't know where you got it.
Yeah,
I really like it. I really like it. Yeah, I really like it. So anyway, for those who don't know, it's obviously from my store. But no, it's good stuff. So you were in the military, and how did you get to Austrian economics from there? It's usually you don't go Austrian economic route. You know what I'm saying?
No, I mean the Austrian economics is a newer part of it for me. I got into I don't know. I got back from Afghanistan and I don't know. I started to just put together the things that I was doing, and supporting and perpetuating, and I lost my mind for a second. I'm embarrassed to admit I fell into Alex Jones for a while there, and the conspiracy train. I was never as far as believing in, like, lizard people or anything like that, but...
You never went David Icke, huh? Yeah, the reptilians, man. The reptilians are gonna kill us.
Then I hopped on the Rand Paul train briefly and found Ron Paul, and that's when I just started putting together, consent and choice and all the things we preach. And the economic part I didn't even get into until, I don't know, 3 months ago. My buddy John for a year has been telling me, you're an anarcho-capitalist. And I'm like, dude, I don't even know what that stuff means. I just like free trade. And if you have X and I have X and we swap, and that's about as far as I need to go. It's
most people today think we already live in like a free market capitalism system.
No,
they don't realize it's statelessness. It comes down to an etymological disagreement or unconsciousness about some of the root rhetorical meanings of these words. So I think linguistic manipulation over the years. Thanks, Peter Joseph. Right. Anyway, my point being that it was hard for all of us. Were you sucked in through a public school recruiter or something like that? How did you get into the military?
Honestly, I'm a musician too. At first I was going to join the Army National Guard Band, which I really should have done. I would have started as an E4, which is a dramatically higher pay grade than E1. And yeah, I eventually decided I wanted to be all gung-ho and kick ass, yada yada, and went active Army and did the combat thing instead, and shit did I regret it.
It's kind of funny while we're talking about economics, and maybe the panel. This is kind of a quiz for the panel. Does anybody know my favorite economics website?
Mises.org?
Oh, you nailed it. Yeah, that's true. Well, they do give a praxeological perspective, and it's obviously, and it still has the consequentialist arguments. I think they have the whole package, right?
That is. I mean, Michael, you would definitely say that you're more of a formative, this is the moral standing. This is a voluntary interaction. That's a great thing, and the consequentialism of it, be damned if I'm going to start using force to get what I want, is a bad thing. Is that where you come from, or is it
Oh, I definitely have deontological roots, but I think the consequentialist arguments also work out as well. And I think sure. I think it's a mixture that has gotten people just like Freeman over here to come over into anarcho-capitalism personally.
So, but Michael Freeman, you're more from the results oriented or from the foundational basis type thing?
Foundational basis.
Awesome,
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I just believe in peace, and force is just always wrong. Initiating force is wrong every time, no matter what it is, and that can go down to a regulation, which I deem as a sanction, the same kind of deal.
Well, keep in mind that sometimes you're in a situation where you've got two different things. You got pragmatism, and you've got a right of redress or somebody being wronged, and so. I mean, we can all understand that if you're freezing in the frickin' forest and you find this cabin that's nobody's there, and you can break in and you can steal the food and you can eat their food and so on, you're gonna do it. You're just gonna do it. But they have a claim against you. You've wronged them. So I mean, this answers the whole oh, I gotcha moment where people say, well, your argument against the initiation of force always being wrong. No, you know what? The initiation of force is quote unquote wrong. But only in that I have a debt that I have to...
Restitution.
Yeah, I have to... They can demand redress from me if I screw them that way.
What utilitarians? Listen to you guys.
Far be it for me to actually, I don't know, if I have to frickin'
survive,
I'm going to break the rules, but I broke the rules. They were rules. Okay. All right. As long as we're good on that.
Sure, I've been breaking the rules my whole life.
So you're saying they aren't axiomatic, basically. I agree with you. And I know Chris LaRue does too. That's a whole other topic. Anyway, so going back to this, I want to, since Kyron Pearson's not here, let me ask you this question to kind of fill in for his spirit. What kind of success have you had with your family, friends? Good, bad? Are they listening, pushing away? What did they already have? What kind of slant did they already have before this?
Sure. Well, most of my friends are spread across the country anyways. I know all of one person from the Army in this state, and he wouldn't even pay attention to this stuff. My girlfriend's Actually, I heard you coin this term. I think anarcho-curious. Yeah, my best buddy John is a full-blown libertarian as well. He's sold me on a lot of the economic stuff, to be honest. But yeah, most of my friends are soldiers, and they block me pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a question I think I want to almost ask everybody I meet is what kind of success are you having with the conversion? I want to open this up to the rest of the panelists. Who wants to ask Freeman a question? Go ahead.
How long, so you said you've been out for 3 years now from the military? Yeah, so in the meantime, have you been trying to work in a voluntary situation where you're not being paid from the government?
At first, I worked for the student veteran organization at my college, which is paid through theft, and I did that for a while, but I wasn't really quite on board yet. More like Big L type, if you will. I do get a pension from the military, and I'm not going to say I'm embarrassed to admit that, but I feel like a slight hypocrite. But at the same time, I believe in property rights, and I believe in contracts, and I had a binding contract with this organization. And it's kind of better for me to get paid this money than somebody who's going to go kill people or whatever. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. Maybe it's a self-rationalization, but I need it or I'm dead. So back to break.
I agree that you signed that contract, and I don't think that the military would have heeded a second to throw you in jail if you broke that contract or court-martial you. So,
Nope.
So you're just holding up your end. I think Stephen has one for you.
Yeah, I got one only because I just listened to it today. It's the old Stefan Molyneux argument about having statist friends or staying in contact with family members.
Emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmail. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if you've heard his argument full out because I would probably do a pretty terrible job of re-articulating it. But he basically is along the lines of, if you have statist friends, you are helping the state and you are evil. Is essentially the gist that I got. I don't know what you think. Just mentioning that you have a lot of friends, in the military and so on, that obviously would most likely be quite statist. I don't know. What are your thoughts about that? Do you see yourself as evil for doing that? Do you have? I'd just be interested to hear your thoughts on
that. It's very difficult. This was very hard for me to grasp. It took a real long time to understand the fact. Not even understand. I understood. It took me a long time to accept the fact that I didn't do good works, to put it plainly. When I try to explain this to other veterans, particularly combat veterans, they're just like I was. They're really more the let's just nuke the Middle East type, and we are the ones who gave you the freedom of speech to talk shit about veterans or whatever it is, and it's simply not the case, and it's really difficult to get through there, especially on the internet. I see maybe 3 of these people twice a year, if that, and I've gotten through to 2, a little bit maybe. It's difficult. It's probably the hardest audience I'm aware of.
All right, Robert, go ahead for a comment from YouTube. Do we have any?
Yes. Well, Kenji basically says you cannot justify it with restitution. When we're dealing with a violation of the non-aggression principle, then you can say it the same for any aggression. No, you can't just say it for any aggression. Actually, Michael, why don't you just give us your opinion on this? I mean, I gave you the example of breaking into a cabin. How is that different than just any aggression that you might claim is legitimized through
murder?
Well, not even just murder. I mean, even the extortion of taxes. I mean, they're saying, well, if I didn't steal your money and tax you, I couldn't prevent these big bad guys in the foreign country from coming in and taking all your shit. So, I mean, what would you say to the person who says, well, you're legitimizing all initiation of force by accepting this example? Keep in mind you're muted up right now. Okay.
Yeah, I might have thoughts. Can you explain that shorter and simpler?
Okay. The person, I guess, is claiming that by my example of the cabin in the woods scenario, that it is when somebody says that they have a extenuating circumstances and they're willing to pay the redress cost for the action, how does that not immediately justify all actions of aggression?
That's tough.
Kind of a loaded question there.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does. It still does violate the non-aggression principle, even if it's your life or limb. It's just a matter of, well, I don't know. It's just too situational. I think. Are you saving your life or saving lives of others, or freeing someone in this action of aggression? I'm not sure that. As opposed to something like murder that is completely unjustified, no. Or blind theft, rape, whatever, no.
Well, I don't think you could ever have proportional makeup, restitution for murder anyway. Technically, in my opinion.
No,
okay. He clarifies it here. He says, just saying you're claiming this doesn't violate the NAP. No, that's not what we're claiming at all. What I'm claiming is that sometimes, in certain circumstances, let's say, for example, you're in a gun shop, the owner goes into the bathroom, and while this is going on, across the street you see a person being accosted and potentially going to die. You grab his gun, you fill it with his bullets, and you go over there and you stop the guy from accosting this innocent person and saving his life. Now, did you break the NAP? Yes, you did. You violated the NAP. And you owe the restitution necessary to the gun store owner for his gun.
I think that's important is the fact that as anarcho-capitalists, libertarians, voluntarists, when we respect property rights and we are breaking the NAP, the point is that we accept the fact that that is their property. We accept the fact that we don't have a right to it. So if they want to take a restitution or action towards us, then they are justified.
Yes, absolutely.
Great, agreed.
Yeah, there's not much to add there, really. All right, so let's move on. Michael, when I'm looking over at you're kind of a young guy.
Yeah, 26.
Well, this is a good thing, right? I like being younger myself. I'm glad I'm under 40. But anyway, I think one of the things that's important for us to really understand is who are some of the bigger influences in your voluntarist understanding that helped you really understand the non-aggression principle, etc. So was it a Molyneux type perspective? Was it a David Freeman? It was Molyneux was big.
Yeah, it was more Stefan Molyneux, Larkin Rose. Adam Kokesh was the one who really got me started into it. He's funny, and that I needed that to get into the philosophy stuff.
And military, kind of like you. Yeah.
And he's a little wild. I'm a little wild too. Yeah, I like Larkin Rose a lot. Jeffrey Tucker's great. I like Chris Cantwell. I like all the modern guys, of course. Mises, Thoreau's great. I'm just kind of dipping into the old school philosophers right now, but yeah. Shanklin's okay.
Yeah, I don't like him. I don't like that guy. He's kind of So, the funny stuff. So when we're looking at it, why was it that you were a minarchist? Obviously, when you were in the military, you weren't really a minarchist per se. You kind of went to the minarchist phase with Ron Paul, and then what was it that pushed you over to anarchism?
Well, just to touch, the reason I was a minarchist, I don't know, I just pronounce things weird. The reason I was a minarchist for so long was because I was holding on to the Constitution with my bare for life, dude. I fought over it. It was really hard for me to let that go. I have them all over my house, and it was hard. What really, really pushed me, honestly, it wasn't any major thing. I just started to understand that governments always inherently grow, always have for all of human history, and it's not containable. It will always come back to the police state, the safety state, the military-industrial state, whatever. And there's just no way to contain it. If there was, the founders had if the founders had a legitimate idea, it was a great idea, I think, but it failed. And if that was our best shot, then we need to try something different. Yeah.
No, I think that's a good point. You know, most people kind of miss the fact that they think they can shrink the state back into this limited government thingy. That goes against all of history. That's statistical
Show me
evidence.
some evidence, and maybe we'll talk about it. But
yeah, I mean, the quantifiable statistics and evidence show that historically the state grows and grows and grows. It doesn't shrink. So, well, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think once people do realize that fact that you're up against not a system that you can shrink, but a system that will always continue to grow on you until you smash it and create something else, or hopefully create a multi-choice based type governing agencies called DROs or whatever you want to call them, right? that give you choice in your dispute resolution. Other than that, though, we're pretty much stuck into this thing, and there's not much we can really do political action-wise. I want to open this up to the rest of the panelists. We only got about maybe 13 more minutes left with Michael Freeman. Does anybody have any more questions or comments? I do, if you guys don't. But I want to see. I don't want to hog all the time. Panelists?
Well, just the thing that I would ask is that, given your perspective on things, you see the people that you're interacting with changing their minds or changing the minds of others and so on, but you're trying to influence others and so on. What do you see as the future of the movement that you are now a part of? I mean, the freedom movement, how is it that you see it rolling out? Do you think that there is going to be technological changes? Do you think that there's going to be an overthrow? Do you think that there's going to be violence that's going to happen? How do you predict what is going to happen?
Sure. I think it's going to be a big combination of all of it, hopefully not overthrow or anything that involves guns, armed revolutions, I hope. Yeah, between cryptocurrencies, whatever currencies, silver, gold, alternative currencies are going to destroy the American bread economy, and agorism is a big one. I think filming the police is great, showing their inconsistency and their lack of credibility. Not voting, I think, is a real good way to do it as well. Maybe Congress will decide who's president if no one comes to the polls, but that can only go on for so long. I think a big combination of all of it, yeah. Discussions, philosophical evolutions happening within the individual, all of it. I don't think one thing can topple the state.
What do you think? What do you think is going to happen with Adam Kokesh's run in 2020 for president?
I heard a little video on you earlier today about that, actually. He's not going to win, and I'm not going to. I like Adam a lot, but I'm not going to vote for him. I'm not going to. I've never voted in my life. I didn't vote for Ron Paul. I'm never ever going to do that. I hope that would be great if he won, but he's probably going to be in jail anyways, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wonder what's going to happen with Kokesh. Any ideas from the rest of the panels?
Well, I was just talking to Jeffrey Peterson actually on my show on last Wednesday, sorry. And Jeffrey Peterson is Adam Kokesh's producer for his show, and Jeffrey Phillips, sorry, my bad. That's terrible of me to get that wrong. Okay, so he seems to think that there's no way that he's just gonna walk with time served. Because he was only in the actual prison itself for something small, and then he got moved over to DC or whatever, and they don't count that, I guess. So I imagine he'll probably get a couple of years. I don't know. I'm no legal ease person, so.
Yeah, not looking too good for the Coke, for the cash. Anyway, really sad scenario there. All right, let's move on. Let's try to be a little bit more optimistic. It's like, yeah, so we're surrounded by the state. It sucks. Yeah, Kokesh is about to be dragged. Nobody's gonna do anything about it. Yeah, this sucks. All right, so Freeman, the nice thing is we're all anarchists here, and we weren't 5-10 years ago. So let's try and be more optimistic here. No, but seriously, the reason we're on the show here is to talk about some of the bad about throughout the world, and I'm glad that you could be with us to talk about this. Freeman, I'm curious to what seeing how you have been in the military. I want to kind of hammer away on the foreign policy for the last few minutes we have you here.
Sure.
When we look at America, obviously in 1953 they invaded Iran with, I guess it's a coup through some kind of third-party means, right? So they basically had a CIA coup using some of the other people inside of there, propped up the Shah, and led to the Iranian hostage crisis,
sure.
Which, this whole stream of events in the Middle East that just stem. People act like, 9/11 just happened and then we went to the Middle East, right? Like the first Iraq War happened and that was the first time we ever went in the Middle East, right? Like that was it. There's no other reason for them to be upset at us. What was it like when you were over there talking to some of the Afghanistani people? Did they generally want us there, or did they give the facade they wanted us there? Were they afraid to tell you that they didn't want you there? What was the vibe that you got?
Sure. Well, I was there 08-09, so I wasn't there for the first the invasion and all that stuff. I was there really when Kandahar started to heat up. Well, first of all, none of them believed that Osama bin Laden had ever existed, ever. Not a real person, like Iron Man 3, if you will, the Mandarin, something like that. They didn't want us there. The ones that we had to interact with, who we paid, were nice, and they would barter with us. Actually, that was my first real free market interaction of my life. It was kind of great. But yeah, they didn't want us there. They knew that we were invading their country. They knew that we were killing farmers and kicking their doors in and taking their guns away. Sure. The military is imperialization, and that is all it is. There's no defense about it.
Could you communicate with them? Did some of them speak English?
Sure. We had interpreters all over the place.
And so what would happen, like when they would talk to you? I'm sure you talked to not too many of the ones that didn't want you there. I'm sure you talked to the people who wanted. I'm sure that the people who wanted you there were more apt to come up and talk to you. But like what percentage, if you could give us some kind of, from just your personal experience, like 80% didn't want you there, 20% did.
96-4.
Wow.
I mean, some of them had to interact with us, so they'd be casual, but no.
What'd they say about Saddam Hussein? What'd they say about Saddam?
In Afghanistan? I never really.
Oh, you're in Afghanistan. That's right. I'm sorry. Yeah. No, my bad. So, okay, so they don't even believe, most of them didn't even believe, they thought it was like a false flag.
Pretty much, yeah. I didn't know that term yet, but yeah.
Yeah, interesting stuff. I want to give the panelists another chance. I keep, hitting you with questions here. I got a lot of them. Obviously, we could go on for hours. So, panel, any questions from you guys?
Well, I think that just as a general suggestion, if you had a person that was considering going into the military, what sort of, other than just say don't. I mean, how would you really say to them, look, I understand that you really want to do X, and what you're really doing is Y, and if you really want to actually achieve this, then you should do Z, or, how would you communicate that to them?
First, I would have them read War is a Racket by Major General Smedley Butler, and then I would ask them simply, you want to do good, right? You want to save people and do good works? Do some research and show me how. Show me what you are going to do that is good. Show me what you are going to do that will help people. Research the word blowback and show me what that means. I wouldn't tell them. I would help them figure it out for themselves. It's not the way that it's ingrained. It's very, very hard to be told. Yeah, that you're that wrong.
What kind of brainwashing did they put you through? I mean, obviously, I had a friend who went to Iraq early, and he said on the plane ride there was literally like you have in-flight movies in the middle.
Sure.
They were on like a huge carrier plane, and the video was just playing like heavy metal music and talking horrible about what do they call them, Hajis, and it was just like so derogatory towards them. They're all enemies. That was the angle that he said he was sold on it, and he didn't realize until he got back either. Did you experience that?
Sure, of course. They'll show videos like in your pre-combat, not even training, like PowerPoint slides of mangled soldiers' bodies. Soldiers showing explosions, reenactments, and exactly what happened, and constantly ingraining into your head that these people are evil, and you go to NTC.
Which people specifically did?
Well, whatever bad guy.
The brown skins, the yellow skins, the red skins, the whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know how they word. I want to know the objective wording that they actually used. What words did they use to describe the enemy?
Insurgent.
And who was an insurgent?
Enemy combatant.
And who was an enemy combatant to you?
The Taliban.
But so it was just, and everybody's part of the Taliban? Is that what they said?
Well, no. In this specific training that I'm talking about, it was really generalized. We weren't really broken down into exactly where we were going to be going yet, stuff like that. Yeah, this is even early on, much earlier on. Even in basic training, they have the same kind of videos showing, the IED blasts and bodies and whatnot afterwards to ingrain into your head that this is evil and you need to stop this evil, to put it bluntly. Sure.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, one last chance for the panelists. Anybody want to interject here?
Yeah, sure. I have a buddy who's going into the military. Oh, an old buddy, an old school friend. And I've lost kind of contact with him, and he's he was always a good guy. And is there anything that you would suggest, say somebody knows somebody that's going into the military and wants to pursue a career in that, what would you say to them?
Kind of the same advice that I would use. Don't tell them. Try to let them find out for themselves. Provide them with maybe information. And it can't be too biased. Nothing like the troops are welfare whores or anything like that. Try to provide them with unbiased statistical information
This is how many murders have happened under government in the last 100 years. This is what happens in real war. Collateral damage is this many statistically, etc. Yeah, I'm with you. I think showing them the innocent, civilian death rate, which of course isn't even close to being even near the reality of what it probably is.
Let's not forget depleted uranium munitions that are going to be affecting the country for years and years and years.
Oh yeah, because of radiation fallout. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of bad stuff. I love this point of view and helping people understand that there is actually a subjectivist, consequentialist argument that we could make out of this too. So, really good stuff. Anybody else want to ask a question before we have to let them go? Last chance. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so my guess is that you're probably coming from somewhat Republican background. I mean, it sounds like what you were saying was fairly Republican in way. It certainly doesn't seem like you were a Democrat, but got interested in Ron Paul. So when you're talking with Democrats,
sure,
you're trying to deal with the. All right, I want to ask them questions which will lead them to make the conclusions for themselves. What questions do you think that you can ask them that brings them along board?
I've succeeded in helping a liberal become classically liberal. That's not an easy one. Yeah, I am more of a right-wing background. I think that's the easier target changeover audience. A liberal, huh? Well, first, you don't support war. Your commander-in-chief, your messiah in office, has prolonged, extended, started plenty more wars than the prior administration, for one. Yeah, that's usually my go-to. I'm in Rhode Island, and I see a lot of it. They praise Obama up here and try to just show them the truth about war. That's usually my go-to is military stuff. That's what I know. So.
Okay. All right. Well, it looks like we've kind of reached the end of the time that we have available there. Mike, do you have a final question before we go?
No, I just want to thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, well, hey, I also want to give you a chance to give out plugs for your website as well, so go ahead and give out some plugs.
Yeah, it's Don't Tread on Anyone on Facebook, just a page. You can type in facebook.com/thestate with 2 E's. About it. I'm working on some other stuff. Not quite yet. Don't worry, I'll let you know.
Hey,
I wanted to invite you to continue on if you would like to stay on with us into the After Hours show. I definitely would, love to converse with you more on these topics, questions, and address some of the topics that we didn't get a chance to get to on the Voluntary Virtues Hangout.
Unfortunately, I really got to tend to my dogs. I don't know if you guys have been hearing them.
All right.
Actually, we can't, but it's good for you to do that. But you're always more than welcome over here on Voluntary Virtues Network. So make sure you guys check over on the show that's about to start up here in about 3 to 4 minutes, which is the After Hours with the Krug, Robert Kruger. Going to be pumping it away. Of course, I'll be over there, Garrett, Steve, and I think a bunch of us are going to be transferring over there, and hopefully have some other people checking this out too. But I want to thank you again, Michael Freeman, for being here tonight. Obviously, you're a wonderful guest. I want to also commend you for taking the journey. You get to a fork in the road. It's kind of the blue pill, red pill thing. Well, you chose the hard, learning the reality of the world route instead of taking the more cushioned route. And so I do want to thank you for fearlessly going out into the world and trying to answer the tough questions. And hopefully we can have you back on within the next 6 months to a year and get a little update from you. How's that sound?
Great, thanks, appreciate it.
Awesome. Everybody, Michael Freeman, and as you guys know, don't tread on anyone. Thank you again. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Say good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. And if
Awesome.
you are wanting to join us with After Hours, just reload Voluntary Virtues Network.
That's right, exactly. Just refresh. If you're on the actual Voluntary Virtues YouTube channel, the main channel, just here right after about 10:01, 10:02, hit the refresh button and you'll automatically be in there as well. I'm also going to come back in here after this show is over and put the link in this video's comment section so you guys can just click on the link and go. For some reason, they won't let you do it on live shows. Ridiculous. But anyway, good to have you guys checking us out here on Voluntary Virtues. I want to thank Spencer Young and Michael Freeman for joining us. Hopefully we can get to some of these current events and topics, if not throughout the week, sometime this week, but at least by next Tuesday. And I want to thank the panel as well for being here tonight, which we're about to transfer over to the After Hours on Voluntary Virtues Network. Guys, check us out next Tuesday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I also have a brand new show every Monday, 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern, that includes Walter Block, Stefan Kinsella, Jeffrey Tucker, David Freeman, lots of great names. They alternate every Monday, so it's a really good system we got set up with these guys. Some pretty big names, and we really do go in depth on these. We ask the tough questions. So make sure you guys check us out here on the Voluntary Virtues Network, youtube.com/Voluntary Virtues. Thank you once again. I'll see you over on the other side with the Krug in the After Hours. See you guys soon. Thanks again, panelists.